Teachers of Reddit. What's the best worst student you've ever had and why? Worst student complained about how the diary of Anne Frank was in diary format. Explained many times. At the end, she was pissed because it was unfinished. She never believed it was non-fiction because it was unrealistic. She also didn't know what state she lived in and thought the moon was fake. About best student. But one of my favorites is a kindergartner who called another kid a little fucker. I'm newer to this age and asked if he did that and why I was surprised and struggling to respond. His response was yeah, because John is acting like a little fucker. Current best student, the girl that pretends to be her mum and calls into school to say that she's sick. And then when I called him, she tried to keep it up and was saying she is like, we're going to tell her to come. Fucking hilarious. Current worst student, this one girl that brings things like Sun Tzu's Art of War to class context. I'm an English teacher, so that she can very visibly read it and try to kiss up to me. I hate her so much. First one is getting a 30 and the second one is 90 something. The grades aren't actually reflective of my opinion. I once taught English at a vocational school in Colombia. Most of the students were high school college age. But I had one student who was probably in his early 40s. He paid very close attention and studied a ton, but absorbing a new language is difficult at that age, and so he almost always got the lowest test scores in the class. Nevertheless, he didn't get discouraged and was right there the next day paying close attention and studying. I've never respected a student more than that. Best student I've ever had was a 5-year-old little boy with ASD and ODD. He had explosive anger, volatile tantrums, and foul language at times, but was also unbelievably bright, hilarious, and full of kind words for his friends. His home life was really rough, but he still had such big bright eyes when it came to looking at the world. I think about him all the time. He gave me rocks he found on the playground because he thought they looked cool, and to this day they live on my desk. One time during our student-teacher program in college, we made our second-grader students write an assignment about a particular sea animal. One kid wrote about the octopus. He wrote and recited in front of the class. The octopus has 8 testicles. Class erupted into mayhem, and they were all laughing and throwing things and screaming and shouting and making lots of noise, and the octopus report kid was just baffled why everyone was freaking out. I think every student has potential. My toughest students have been some of the most rewarding to work with because they grow the most. I've also had some absolutely brilliant students that gave me headaches. Sometimes it's really hard to keep everyone engaged and challenged at the same time. Teaching is hard, but I've always said if you hate a student, you haven't gotten to know them well enough. There's always more behind a tough shell. Worst student I've had the worst parent as well. Mum was fixated on this kid getting an A and she simply wasn't a student. I teach a language, and not everyone is good at learning languages, this girl included. If she'd get a C or a B, Mum would call and berate me. It was incredibly demoralizing to have her, and the day she finished I cried tears of joy. Any student that puts in work and actually tries to understand is great. Then there are those that come with the attitude that someone is forcing them to attend, or worse, those that pay for a class and assume the subject at hand will just be downloaded onto their brains. As a private guitar teacher male, 30 years old at the time, and making house calls for lessons, having a male student who was at least 20 years my senior who seemed like he wanted more from me than just lessons. Not a teacher, but I was a part-time tutor at an English school in Japan. This boy about 8 years old punched me in the arm and then flipped me off. I was only trying to teach him the ABC stamp. I had a really vulgar, disgusting 6th grader who whispered inappropriate things to the girls in class and made them really uncomfortable. Could not stand him. My math teacher kicked me out for falling asleep during a test. But the next day, she brought me a coffee and helped me catch up. Worst student was a girl who bragged about getting her dog drunk and then running the dog over with a car. All right, Sister Patricia from Mother Hale Academy. It's time to see if you hated me as much as I hated you. We had one who would masturbate in class in our school. Gotta be the worst ever.